welcome to another installment of Fractal Vlogs here on Fractal Radio, which is the official podcast of the Fractal Journal. I like the word fractal. If you can't tell, if you mostly all know over to that website at www.fractaljournal.com, you'll find stories, ideas, and more. So I'm going to be making daily content because although I believe in quality over quantity, I think that quantity is necessary to eventually produce quality. And also, something like a website that's centered around content creation basically runs around the concept of, hey, we're subscribed to you, whether it be WordPress or YouTube, because we want to see things, to have more options with which to entertain ourselves. And towards that end, dailiness. So I'm really happy right now, which is why I wrote the last daily poem about the reason why I'm happy. There's actually weather here in the Carolinas. It actually finally got cold. Oh my God. It was still up to like 80 degrees Fahrenheit here until about a few weeks ago. I promise you, it's that especially the area I live in, it gets really humid and awful. Now I love the Carolinas. I really doubt, despite the fact that I'm not originally from here. I immigrated here from Russia when I was 8 years old. I doubt I'm ever gonna leave. But man, all right. So what am I to do with this water project that I've just been babbling about for the longest time? It's so hard to do nonfiction research because with a fiction story, even though some people claim it's more difficult to write fiction, with a fiction story, there's kind of that limbic element of, hey, there's this fun, cool story with a resolution and the conflict. And you have that to an extent with a nonfiction, but it's less of a clear-cut format. And so that's probably why I've been so slack on it. But I have gathered stories from the research that I've been doing over the years around the subject, some of which are on my mind, but not quite fresh enough. But I'm going to go ahead and start talking about them because here's what I use YouTube for. I use it to find out new and interesting things, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from the best experts. It just has to come from people that can understand the subject matter and present it and find it. And I think that's really like the whole business of reporting or of anything really that has to do with content creation, is taking information, whether it be in the form of images or sounds or the written word, and making it presentable. And you don't have to be a genius to do that. Now I want to continue to improve and become better informed, but right now we're going to talk about just a curiosity, which is Geetha, Angara. So this was out in New Jersey. There was a water treatment facility, and this woman was, I believe, a chemist or someone who oversaw the water treatment process. And so she was found floating in a tank, and this was like in the early 2000s. And it was very, very mysterious, very, very odd. You know, New Jersey, sometimes you're like, is that the mob? But putting aside those kinds of conspiracy theories, here's the kicker. She wasn't found or discovered like that for a few days, and that was in the municipal supply for some area of New Jersey. And we do all this military spending, whatever your viewpoints in our foreign policy, but we don't invest in education about the water process, etc., or how much water it takes to produce a certain good, which is why I became so kind of involved in it, because I realized, holy crap, I have no idea how agriculture works. I have no idea how all the ins and outs of the water treatment process really work, and whether or not our water is even good quality. And And a lot of this was brought to my attention by slowly coming to realize, holy shit, trucking, like the trucking industry is so important. Like if anything on the line of transport with trucking goes wrong, that can lead to a whole frigging spiral of crap. And that is something I want to help avoid. Now there's a lot of people, brilliant people out there, dedicated people that are already doing that. The point of it is, despite that, we're still having these problems. So obviously, like for instance Flint, Michigan, it's important to keep more eyes on it, which is why I'll be bringing you stories like those of Geetha Angara, one that I found in Alex Prudhomme's book about water. You just Google Alex Prudhomme water, and I'll probably provide a link below if I'm not feeling too terribly lazy. But oh my gosh, it's madness out there. Other bit of madness. Some folks might not have, listened to my last Fractal radio because the sound. There was something off with the sound. Like sometimes my microphone right here, which I would be using, but that would mean I would have to render and mix and everything. And on my old HP system, running a very kind of like good for what it is, but it's a Linux application called Kadian Live. Very good for what it is, but on this system with that software, it takes me an hour to just remember how I had an image file, an hour or so to render that image file with an audio MP3 file of this, and also sometimes the sound goes wrong, like my voice. It does fluctuate, like right now, I sound pretty kind of like, I guess, more higher pitched, more nasally, but depending on my mood and what I've been doing. But it's not that deep as it was in the last video. I sounded like I was Mephistopheles or something. This is more normal, what I'm doing right here. So, yeah. In my last video, because of all that crap I just mentioned that you might have watched, because you've been like, why am I listening to the devil? In my last video, I talked a little bit about Russia. And there's some things that I feel like Westerners don't understand about Russia. Here's why I'm always hesitant to comment on this, because especially in today's weird climate, and especially because of all these misunderstandings, like, hey, you're a Ruski agent. No. I've been in this country since I was 8 years old. Have very little ties back to Russia. That's exactly what a Ruski would say. Well, then I'm screwed, I guess. I'm a commie. What's up? Now, look. Man. As a Russian, here's my background. Okay, so there's kind of 3 last names. My original last name was not weird. That's the family that adopted me. Okay, my original last name is Viborov, but that family married the Borovskis, or had like the lineage of the Borovskis, and then the Vatkevich. So the Vatkevich came from the Ukraine, and the Borovskis came from Poland. So here it is. There's a lot of people in like Poland and the Ukraine and Moldova, etc., who are of Russian descent. Likewise, there are people who are, more, Ukrainian and Polish that live in Russia. There's a lot of back and forth because those countries are all around each other. They're Slavic nations, and they share a similar culture. So when there's a fuckery stirred up there, Russia might do something goofy, like, for instance, find sneaky ways to get around that nuclear treaty that Trump just reneged on for that reason. And, look, yes, it's not good to screw around on that, but what's the context of it? This has to be remembered so that when you're being presented all this information and voting on foreign policy decisions or people's platforms in foreign policy, you don't want to just be causing more chaos in the world because of the misunderstanding that's engendered by the media. And it behooves all of us to learn more about geography, etc. I'm not in this department either, because about last year now speaking, I had a little brief stint in a marketing position, and there was a fellow there who was of Moroccan descent, and for some reason, I was like, the Moroccans are Turks, and they're not friggin' Turks. Morocco is in Africa. I was just completely wrong, completely ignorant. Yeah, I think it's because I think the Ottomans had something to do with Morocco at one point. That's why I got confused. But man, I felt really, really dumb. And as a Russian, when I hear people talking about like Russia being this antagonistic bully in the region, the first thing that comes to my mind is Iraq, like all of these foreign entanglements that we're in. But Russia, who has history with this Poland and this Ukraine and this Georgia, Ossetia, oh my God, suddenly that's like the most terrible thing in the world. It's not, and we shouldn't be fomenting policies and people in those countries who, in the case of a lot of like the Azov battalion types, kind of neo-Nazis, okay? Like a lot of people think that there's some kind of liberal cause du jour, the Ukraine situation. I don't know if there's legitimate grievance in the Ukraine against Russia. There may well be. I'm not going to, just because I have a Russian background, support everything that Russia does. Because, you know, I say as a Russian, but really I'm way more American than I am Russian. Because as an American, I don't support a lot of what America does. So, you know, all things have to be assessed rationally, and that's really important. And for some reason, this is the reason I finally decided to talk about this Russia crap, because even in the alt media, which generally does a good job, I don't see this being pointed out enough, the unique history of Russia with these nations that are now in turmoil around it due to Western misunderstandings and Western business interests. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. And hopefully this time somebody actually heard this. Now, let's talk a little bit about tech addiction. So I am completely addicted to technology. I check my YouTube every morning, first thing I wake up. I'm just listening to YouTube news, little funny skits and videos and things, and that's fine. But for the longest time, I was wanting to, you know, do the classic morning routine of journaling and meditating and whatever. And, you know, as you're thinking about why it is that you're not doing the journaling thing and why you're so addicted to technology, you start thinking about, oh my God, the feedback loops and the friggin' addiction and the dopamine, etc. And really, I don't know what's so very different besides the instant access. Like a lot of the behavioral changes that people talk about in these apocalyptic terms, I think it's more has to do with the behavior becoming more noticeable, like people's cliquishness and their irrationality. Oh my God, Facebook is causing all of that. Is it? Or is it just bringing it to the forefront? I'm no fan of Facebook. I've written articles about why I don't use Facebook and why I think it's terrible and does exactly that kind of cubbyholing of people to a greater degree than would normally be present. But I also kind of have always felt that aspect of it is being hyped because it feels kind of cool and cynical to make that observation. So I feel it's important to push both things forward there. So, yeah, this is probably reaching the 15 minute mark there. And I am going to try to maybe post a Newscatcher of Sam Monroe section today. Maybe not. But I'm definitely going to try to push more content in general outward and do more Patreon-only content, especially since it's getting close to Halloween. And I want to push out some cool little Halloween stories there for people who would actually be so kind as to become a Patreon, because, hey, you know, I'm not trying to live a great grand lifestyle, but everything around here costs money. That's just how our societies work. And it's taken me a long time to get over the hurdle of even, like, making a Patreon or doing that kind of crap. So there we go. There's my shill. Hopefully it wasn't too annoying. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you later, guys. Bye.